Okay, ladies, I'm re-releasing this early episode with Florence Romano because it's so good. Florence Ann Romano is a gem, and she brings the heat on something that we just don't talk about enough in midlife: building your village on purpose, because your village is not going to build itself. Women outlive men statistically, and it's just common sense to plan for that. Friendships don't magically sustain themselves at this stage. Kids grow up, careers shift, divorces happen, parents age, circles change. And if we're not intentional, we can wake up isolated. I don't want that for you. Florence breaks down what it actually takes to create real grown woman friendships, the kind that carry you through hard seasons and celebrate the beautiful ones. Midlife is not a shrinking chapter, it's a strengthening one. It's richer when you can go through midlife with your people. And as a doula, I need to remind you that your life is now. So if your circle needs deepening or rebuilding, this conversation is going to move you. Listen in or listen again. I just want to encourage you. Let's build a village like it's our job. And please let me and Florence know what you think. Welcome to today's chat. We will be spilling the tea on the art of building intentional relationships with the inspiring Florence Ann Romano. She is a celebrated keynote speaker, an author, and a thought leader, and she's dedicated her life to helping people understand and create meaningful connections and community. And today, she offers key insights into overcoming loneliness, the genuine importance of friendships in this stage of our lives, and finding your village. So get ready to explore the 6 architects of relationship and discover how vulnerability and philanthropy can transform your social ecosystem. Let's embark on this journey of friendship and community together. Welcome to my realm. I'm Tami Jorden, and this is Butterfly Days, the podcast that proves you're not past your prime, you're living in it right now, because women don't have expiration dates. Butterfly Days is a celebration of the extraordinary potential of Gen X and Boomer women. Throughout history, women have shared wisdom to uplift and empower one another, and you're about to learn hard-earned wisdom and best-kept secrets from interesting, inspiring women. So if you're ready to embrace your butterfly season with confidence, find joy in the present, and create a legacy that matters, you're in the right place. No more holding back. Let's spread our wings now. Here we go. Oh my gosh. I am so honored and thrilled that you were willing to come have this conversation. Oh, you know what? Do I have it on record? Yes.
I see it in the
Okay,
corner.
good.
It says record. Yes.
I had that hot minute of, what if I did not turn it back on? But I am really thrilled, though, because as I become closer, more, I can't even find words anymore. This is a perfect interview way to start. No, but seriously, the more I've become familiar with your material, the more I'm like, this is so perfect, because I had begun to notice some of the things that you've taken the time to deep dive on in our community, and was seeing the need to think about relationships and how you're going to need them, not only now, but down the road,
Right.
when things change. And then to see the energy and the beautiful spirit that you bring to it. But I do have to ask, though, why this subject? What compels you to understand connection and community in the way that you do? Like, what drew you to this work?
Honestly, it started when I was a nanny years ago. And people are always surprised when I say that, but I was a nanny for many different families for a very long time. And I was always curious about people. I wanted to understand the dynamics people had, not only in their friendships, but in their homes. And as a nanny, I saw a lot that families go through. And it was a blessing, but also could be very challenging because as the nanny, you're not a member of that family, kind of an honorary member of that family, but you're not a decision maker necessarily, but you're also advocating for these children. And you see things the parents don't. And how do you straddle that line with, being there for the whole trifecta, representing yourself, the parent, and the child or the children? And so, starting off as a nanny, like I said, I noticed a lot, absorbed a lot, and thought, okay, well, there's more to this than just observing what goes on in the home. It's more about what does support look like,
Mm.
and how is this family garnering their support? Actively looking for their support. How are they creating that support, building that support? And so it really started to be the foundation to the work that I do now in personal growth, having to do with community and village. So after I retired from being a nanny, I always say I stay until the wind changes, like the Mary
Like Mary Poppins, yeah.
right, the wind changes for lots of different reasons. I went off and had a digital content company that put an emphasis on mission driven companies that wanted to have a big presence digitally. And so I did that. And then as I was doing that work, I wrote a children's book called Nanny and Me. And
Aw.
it children understand the reason they have a caretaker in their life, and it for all different reasons, whether it's your grandparents taking care of you or you're in daycare. The statistic is over 65% of families in America today have a nanny or a caretaker.
Yep.
So I wanted to address that. So I did that, and then I started doing a lot of media surrounding childcare in the new millennium and what that looked like. And then COVID hit several years later. And I heard constantly from any group chat I was in or any place I was online, anywhere on social media, people would say, this village that people talk about, this elusive village, is there a phone number to call? Or do people just show up at your front door with a casserole ready to help you raise your children or be a better person or be my friend or whatever it is? And I thought, well, I think it's time actually that we did give directions to this village,
Yeah.
because the phrase itself, it takes a village to raise a child, as beautiful a proverb as that is, I believe it is very limiting. And I wanted to chop it in half and say it takes a village, period. Because what if you don't design your life with children? What if you never get married? What if you don't have those things that traditionally fall under that proverb with raising a family? Don't you also deserve to find your people regardless of how you design your life? And the answer is yes. And so I wanted to be an answer to that question, which is what led me to write my book, Build Your Village. And now I'm very lucky to be in this space of community building and connection in a world where we feel that disconnection so profoundly, in a world where mental health is suffering, in a world where we have the friendship recession hitting every single different demographic.
Isn't that
Whether
crazy?
you're right, whether you're 18 or 80. So that's what led me to the work I'm doing today.
That's amazing. And I think about, I've been kind of looking into the work from that Harvard study, that 80-year study that they've done about the different aspects of life and changes people go through and how does it impact you. And coming away with the understanding that healthy relationships are as important for longevity, and healthy longevity certainly, as any physical activity that you do.
Right. And it's true. It's a muscle and it's an exercise just like anything else. And the loneliness epidemic that we're in right now, they say equates basically to, smoking a pack a day. That's how unhealthy it is for you to have that isolation. And so as we get older, though, something we have found, and I'm sure anyone listening can relate to this, it's harder to make friends as you get older. You're not in the social scenarios that you used to be. And so the effort that goes into this, it can be tough because just like anything in life, it does take effort. And everyone wants that quick fix. They want that quick hit. They want instant gratification. And that does not happen in this work of connection.
No.
So my question for everyone always is, I can give you the directions and hopefully I've done that, but I can't make you want it.
No.
I can't make you do it.
And you can't make new old friends. You know,
Right.
the
Right.
value of what you invest in and then end up with, because it is an investment, don't you think? I mean, I think humans are meant for connection. We're hardwired for social relationship, but you don't get deep, meaningful, that really good support network by trivializing it. There has to be some degree of intention. I would think that's something that you emphasize.
You're using my favorite word, intention. And that is the truth. You do. It has to be a goal that you have. And I always talk about this concept of village building and finding your people with that word in mind, of course, intention, but also looking at the larger construct of it. You have to decide what your goal is. And even in a conversation I'll have with people or a friend or something like that, I always think about, well, what's my goal here? And how do I back into that based on the person I'm interacting with, right? That's how you get where you want to go. What's that person's personality like? How do they process? I'm not going to be successful in this conversation if I'm not considering those variables. And so the same thing is to be said here for finding your people and finding connection is, what is the intention? Looking at your socio kind of ecosystem, I always say, your social ecosystem, what exists that's working and what is also not working? What am I missing? What do I wish I had? Where do I need to maybe fire some people? Where do I need to move people around into the archetypes that I describe in my book? It's trying to help you solve the problem of this loneliness by evaluating your current state of life and season. And then you start doing the work from there. You start rebuilding from there. You start building from there. You start making the modifications or adjustments that you need. But you have to do that evaluation first. And this is also a problem people run into with this.
Yeah.
Is it can be uncomfortable. It can be uncomfortable to have to be honest about this. It doesn't feel great all the time realizing that perhaps you're struggling in a certain place in your life, and asking for that help is very challenging.
This is so good to say in setting up your village and thinking about it. First of all, you're going to end up in your, God willing, you're going to end up in your 70s one day and hopefully your 80s and thereafter. And social relationships at that point become particularly important. Women, tend to outlive men, average 7 years. On top of that, there's divorce. There's all kinds of other things that are going to come into play. So you're having a village for a woman is particularly, important and meaningful. But in the beginning, and to backfill that is going to be a critical life skill, actually, I think. Certainly a smart way to think about your life and to attempt to plan it, right? But I love what you're saying, that when you begin that process and you think about it, it's okay to be uncomfortable with what you first learn. Why? Like, what do we do if we're uncomfortable, or what should we know?
Well, usually it's when you're uncomfortable that you're on the verge of change. And generally speaking, you're not going to change if you're not having an emotional reaction to it.
It's a catalyst.
So someone said the other day, and I loved this, said that when you are afraid, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're not safe. There is a difference.
Boom.
And blew my mind.
Yeah.
I had them repeat that a couple times because I kind of just needed that to permeate. And isn't that such a beautiful way to think about it?
Yes.
Is that even if you are scared, that it doesn't mean that you're necessarily in a situation that is dangerous to you,
Right.
that is going to destroy you in some sort of way, or again, make you feel like you are unsafe. And this work that I'm talking about with village building, the reason I say sometimes it's not easy for people to do it because it takes a lot of vulnerability is because we don't necessarily want to see ourselves as struggling or lonely or isolated. These are things that sometimes embarrass us. And I've been there in through every different season of my life. I have felt that way. I'm an open book when it comes to anything really about my life. I'm single. I'm almost 40. I have no children. I've never been married. I never thought, Tammy, that I would get to this place in my life and those things would not have been checked off yet in terms of like the boxes I thought I'd have in my life. Doesn't mean that God doesn't have that plan for me at some point in the future, but it's not right now. It's not this season of my life. But because of that, I've had to create a life for myself that is very fulfilling and joyful and happy and has the different support that I need. I'm lucky that I come from a big Italian family, lots of support and cousins and all of that. But it doesn't mean that there still aren't things about my personal life that have been disappointing or disheartening or lonely. And so, I look at myself in the age I am, and I look at my mom, who
Mhm.
is 66. She was married for 40 years and got divorced 5 years ago.
Yep.
And
Not
so
uncommon, girl. That
uh,
is very common story.
it is,
Gray
but I look at
divorce,
my,
they call it.
it's true. And my dad has a lot of issues. It was the right thing for my mom to get divorced and all that. But I look at her and think for a woman that poured herself into that relationship and marriage and raising four kids, I'm the oldest of four. My brother Michael has autism. We're a multi-generational home. My grandparents lived with us growing up. They died warm in their beds in our home. We had that typical quintessential village. And, you look at my mom who thought maybe in this last chapter of her life would have that investment that she made would pay off and then she would be going and traveling the world with my dad and doing all those different things, and it's not how her life turned out at this stage. And so to think at almost 40 and 66 years old, my mom and I sit there and we have parallels in our life and we're in a similar season of our lives and we never thought it would be that way. So all that to be said, we make a lot of plans in our life and it doesn't always pan out that way, but also the relationship that you can have with people that are not necessarily the same age that you are,
Yes.
look and say, oh my gosh, we have so much in common,
Hmm.
actually.
Hmm.
I think there's something really powerful about that, especially between a mother and daughter.
Hmm. Oh,
It's
crazy
really,
beautiful. And not everybody has access to that particular type of a relationship. But if you can add that into your mix, that has to be powerful. And one of the things that you said, because you're younger than most of us, and is that once you cross 50, there begins to become an acute awareness that I don't have to believe my thoughts and that I don't have to buy the fear story if I don't want to. Now, that takes an extraordinary amount of courage to get past it. But I love what you're saying that if we keep eye on the prize, what's important, we can push past what feels like fear or whatever to really look at who do we have in our lives. Do you have a list of who we should have in our lives, or how does this work? Tell
so
us your wisdom, my dear.
yes, oh, you're so sweet. In the book, I actually do talk about the archetypes and I go through these six people in your life that you're going to think, okay, who of these six people do I currently have? And who am I of these six people to others? Because I am all about the reciprocity here. I don't like this idea that it's about gimme, 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 me. We have to think about how we show up for others too in this scenario, right? So that's and we talked about before too that at a certain age where maybe the husbands are gone or whether they've passed away or divorced or whatever it is and you're left with your girlfriends.
Yeah.
Isn't that the truth? That you really are at the end of the day left with those girlfriends. And, we look, I think, also too, to relationships, our romantic relationships to fulfill us on all levels. And it's
Mm,
just not true.
that is so risky.
Right? It is so risky to do that. And I feel like that's why relationships and friendships are so important, is because there are other pillars that you need in terms of support in your life. And just like I'm saying, don't make that spouse or that partner you're with everything to you and expect everything from them. The same goes for friendship. Not every friend is going to satiate you in the same way. I always joke and say, I have the friend that I'm going to go out and have that drink with and let loose, and they're going to make me laugh till my stomach hurts. And that's exactly what I need.
Mm-hmm.
Then I have the friend who shows up at my front door and is like, hey, you're going to sit on the couch with me now for the next few hours, and we're going to talk through what's going on in your life right now because you're not acting right.
Oh,
And
yeah.
she's going to,
I love
be the
her.
mirror. Right. You love her. She's the healer, and you have different friends for different reasons. But where I have found and why I created these archetypes the way that I did was because we're visual learners. Just like the 5 love languages, you want to be able to kind of categorize certain things. It's the same thing for friendship. You want to be able to evaluate your ecosystem that way and be able to say, okay, now I see where my gaps are, or I see where I'm not being fulfilled.
Yeah.
And the reason I also love the archetypes is because it's evergreen in nature. It doesn't matter if you're 18 or 80. It doesn't matter if you're going through a divorce. It doesn't matter if you've just graduated college. It doesn't matter if you have gone through a devastating loss in some sort of way, someone has passed on. You can kind of go back to all of this as an anchor and say, all right, when I feel out of control, where can I take control? And this is a place you can do that. You can start to say, I am powerful and I am worthy of this connection despite what's going on in my life. And so as you look at these archetypes, you start to do that work. And this again is where the honesty and vulnerability comes in, because what if you have this friend in your life that is a wonderful person, you love them very much, but for whatever reason, the relationship is just not working. And I'll give you an example from my personal life.
Please.
I've had a friend for many years, been friends since like kindergarten, and she's wonderful. I respect her in a lot of different ways, but she betrayed me at one point because I found out that she had repeated something to someone that I thought was in confidence.
Mm-hmm.
And it's okay. It wasn't like it was such it was like, a nefarious thing that she was up to. I think she just was chatting,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it just slipped out of her mouth and whatever. But I thought to myself, okay, one of the archetypes I'm going to talk about right now is the accepting villager.
Okay.
This is the first person usually cast. It's the person you confide in, you can confess a secret to. And I think for a long time, I looked at her that way and probably talked to her about a lot of different things in my life. And I said to myself after that betrayal happened, maybe she's not the accepting villager, but I don't want to throw her out because I love her.
Oh.
And there's such a, right? I don't want to get rid of her, but I want to recast her, just like a movie or a play. So I took her out of that accepting villager role and I put her into a different role. And that has completely changed my relationship with her, because not even from her side. She wouldn't know.
No.
I never confronted her about anything. But for me, the expectation of the relationship has changed. So now there's not a heaviness. There's not this hurt necessarily in my heart anymore. I was just with her the other night. We had a grand old time. And it's because I know where she exists in my life now, categorically, and I can set her up for success. And that's what I'm looking for people to do here. I'm encouraging people to set your relationships up for success. And don't always think that you got to get rid of people. You just might need to recast them.
Yeah. I think that that's insanely beautiful. And what a pivotal shift that is, that you don't necessarily have to get rid of people to edit them out, but perhaps you shift them into a different role. When you say that, my first thought is, that's you completely owning your side of the street. Your responsibility in the thing is, I can't have you here because this doesn't work right, but I don't want to lose you. And actually, you're better suited to here, even though I didn't see that at first. That's us owning what we need, in a respectful way, I think, instead of mandating that everyone else change to meet our expectations.
It's something that can be done with conviction, without you forfeiting your manners or
I
your
love
kindness or
that.
your compassion or
Yeah.
your grace.
Yeah.
All of that can exist. And more than one thing can be true at the same time. You can say this relationship isn't serving me in the right way, but I also value this
Mm-hmm.
relationship. So let's go to the opposite end of that spectrum now. What happens when you have to go to the opposite end of
Yeah.
the spectrum, when you have to break up with a
Yeah.
friend?
How's
And
that
in my
work?
book, I actually talk about this. I talk about when the village burns down. And the
Mm-hmm.
village can burn down for lots of different reasons. And sometimes it's out of your control. And sometimes you're the one that burns it down yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay. And sometimes you need to do that. Again, going back to this idea of conviction. How do you say what you mean without saying it mean? And
Wow.
right,
Great
that's
line.
right. Which is one of my favorite things, if a personal philosophy of mine. And I'll give an example. Your phone rings or it vibrates because I don't know if anyone's phone rings anymore. I think everyone has it on vibrate. I know for me, I don't know last time my phone actually rang, but so the phone rings and someone's name comes up on it. And my first reaction to that is an eye roll. And I catch myself in that moment thinking, that's not great. That's not a great reaction when that happens. So, like, what's going on there in that relationship? And maybe it's that I feel like it's pretty one-sided. I feel like it's always something that they need. They always need something from me. I feel like I'm always the favor that they're asking. I feel like I'm constantly having to appease them, and it's not reciprocal. This relationship, I'm kind of a doormat. You go through all those things. Think to yourself, okay, well, is this relationship no longer serving me? And if it's not, then how do I walk away from it? And the first thing I always tell people to do is, would they even notice if you're gone? And so my advice there is, if you don't reach out anymore and you stop making those phone calls and you stop being present the way that you are,
Mm-hmm.
how long is it going to take for them to notice that? Are they going to notice
And
it?
check on you.
Check on you, right? And so sometimes the relationship will just naturally
Yeah.
dissipate. And that's the best case
Yeah.
scenario where it just kind of fades into the
And that's not
background.
an
Well,
unhealthy thing.
not at all. It doesn't mean you're ghosting them.
No.
It just means that actually you're both putting in the same amount of
Yeah.
effort.
The candle burned
So
out.
it's,
Yeah.
yeah. And it shows you also where you stand in terms of their priorities. When someone shows you who they are, believe
Believe
them,
them.
as they say.
Mm-hmm.
So what about if it's the opposite? What if something has happened and you need to address
Mm.
it and you need to actually have an uncomfortable
Yeah.
conversation? Going back to what you and I just talked about, Tammy, in the very beginning, what's the goal of the conversation? If your goal is that it's to end this friendship, again, you can say what you mean without saying it mean. You can say what you say with conviction. You can have that conversation with that person and be honest, but it's all about delivery. People always think that preparing for a conversation is too much effort, or that you don't have time for that sort of thing, or whatever, or however you want to value it, I guess, in your life. I love the idea of preparation in terms of a conversation, because it means that you're being thoughtful,
Yeah.
and it means you're being
It
considerate.
means it's
And
important. You've put
right,
time and
it's
energy
important.
into it.
And so that's my advice there for anyone who's looking to exit a relationship in some sort of way. Think about whether or not a conversation is needed. Maybe it's not,
Mm-hmm.
but if it is,
Mm-hmm.
then what are you looking to say? And
Yeah.
how can you exit with grace?
Yeah. I love
And
that.
how can you not burn that bridge
Yeah.
necessarily? Just because something's ending doesn't mean you need to burn it down.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Although every time you say burn it down, you remind me there's that beautiful Japanese proverb that maybe it's a haiku, but it says, barn burned down. Now I see
Yeah.
the moon.
Yes.
Sometimes the thing that you lost that went away, that needed to be moved, it reveals that, there's where the magic happened. You needed to see something bigger, and that's okay too.
There's beauty in the breakdown. And I've
Mm.
had friendships like that. My best friend in the world, Annie, the reason she and I are friends is because we had a mutual friend that both of us had a falling out
Oh,
with.
wow.
And we ended up being able to, through that
Connect.
friend,
Yeah.
I will always be grateful. I will always be grateful for her because it brought me Annie. But it would have never
Not
happened without.
optimal the way that, yeah,
Right. Yeah.
on
The
the
way it
face of
happened
it.
wasn't great. Yeah. It was very hurtful. I had a really uncomfortable conversations with this former, mutual friend, and it was probably the most painful friendship breakup I've ever had.
Yeah.
And it was just terrible. But something good did come out of it. And that proverb, to your point, is exactly that. All of this to be said, we're looking at relationships at different times of our life, and we're trying to be able to be more open-minded about the fact that not everything is permanent. The only thing I can guarantee you is that things are going to change.
Amen.
And, whether or not that's going through the change, like menopause,
Yeah,
or
exactly.
something like that, or, my girlfriends and I are all talking about perimenopause right now, and we're just all having a big laugh about all of our different symptoms that each person
Yeah.
thinks they're having. So I'll give a side note about that. I told my gynecologist, I was like, I think I'm going through perimenopause. I've got all this weird stuff happening. She goes, well, what do you want to do about it? I go, probably nothing. She's like, do you want to go on hormones? I go, no. I said, I don't want to do anything. And she's like, all right, so then we're done with this conversation, right?
I just needed to say it.
Right? And you're just going to march on. And I'm like, yes. I said, that's it. I just wanted to say that I'm pretty sure it's happening because my mom and I were talking about when she went through it. And I know. But now I think I'm starting to go through it. I said, my eggs are dying. They're falling apart. Thank God I froze my eggs, all this sort of thing. So I go through the whole thing. So anyway,
I
all
love
part of the
this
fun.
so much.
But
Yeah.
but that's what this is.
Yes.
It's really being honest as women who do look to relationships and friendships in a much different way than
Yes.
men do.
Yes.
And saying you're worthy of that connection, you're worthy of that love, and you're also worthy of putting the time in to figure out what is or is not serving
Yes.
you. And just because you're 50 or 60 or 70 doesn't mean that you're exempt from this work. And it doesn't mean that you're not going to go through friendship breakups or betrayals or disappointments
Yeah.
or any of those things.
That's a gift of being human.
Age doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. That's the thing that links us all is this work that we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
If you never knew what my age was, or if you were in a group of people and no one knew what anyone's age was, I guarantee you that you're all probably having the same issues.
I love the direction where we're talking about what if it happens to you and how could you frame it in a way that leverages you to go forward. But it also leads me to, okay, so would you be open to talking about what your archetypes are that you think make a good village? Like for those of us who are thinking, all right, I want to be intentional.
So the archetypes in my book that I explore and that I hope that you identify with, you figure out who you need of these people and also who you are of these people. So I'm going to go through them quickly, but then we're going to dive into them a little bit deeper. But the reason I do it quickly, I'll tell you the reason on the other side of it. So accepting, dependable, cheerleader, communicator, organizer, and healer. Now, the reason I say it that way is because I love to watch your face while I say, whoever I say to, your face, whoever I'm saying it to, because I can see that you're starting to think about the people in your life already. And you're already, as a knee-jerk reaction, starting to cast people in your life. That's what I want. That's exactly what I'm asking you to do, like a movie or a play.
Yeah.
That's the way you do it. So those 6, I'm not saying that if you don't have all 6 of those people, that you are not a fully formed person. And I'm not saying that if you don't have all 6 right now, that means that you don't have the right relationships. You may have 4 out of the 6 right now and say, I'm good. I feel great. I don't think I need anyone else right now. But there may come a time where you do need to add that 5th villager. And sometimes those are moments of crisis. Sometimes, you're going through a death or a divorce or something. And then that's when you see people kind of come in and their arms around you in that way. But these six are meant to help you start getting an idea of the health of your relationships. And so the
Yeah.
definitions that I give for these, the accepting one I talked about a little bit before is like who you're going to confess a secret to. It's the
Mm.
non-judgmental one in your life. The dependable one is your emergency contact. Always talk about how they actually answer their phone. No one does that anymore. Answers their phone. Then there's the cheerleader, the one who inspires, and they're there to be your hype person, but especially in a moment of transition. I like to talk about that as well. The cheerleader, yeah, rah rah rah, but also moments of transition in your life, which there are many, and they look very different. Then there's the communicator. They have your best interest in mind, and they're curious and even tempered. They're capable of seeing other perspectives. I always like to think of a stove that they don't turn up the heat, they put a lid on situations. Then there's the organizer, the person you can delegate to. But even beyond that, they're a person that brings you peace of mind. Think of decluttering both your home and your mind. They're able to do those things. And then the healer, not that I have favorites, but I do have a very special affinity to the healer. This is the person that walks next to you through whatever the it is in your life. But the important
Hmm.
caveat is that they're not there to fix you. They're not there to fix you or the
Mm.
situation. They are consciously compassionate. They are your North Star. They do make you feel better. But I do always want to caution people in the healer role that you're not meant to be the fixer, because that's going to also set you up
Amen.
for a lot of failure if you do it that way, and set your friends up for failure as well. So those are the six that I explore in the book in a lot more detail. But again, you're supposed to look at it of how does my life look compared to these six? And maybe I have three dependables, I have five accepting. The number doesn't matter, but it's supposed to be a barometer for the health of your relationship, and then also looking at how you show up for other people. What kind of villager am I?
I love this. I love this. And I also, I've conflicting, colliding thoughts in my mind because you make so many good points. But the one thing that I think about that I love that you're saying that I haven't heard anybody else say is that it matters that you have these things, but also that you allow them to happen for you. Because sometimes I think there are a lot of women that are used to carrying the whole burden, the whole load, and they don't ever think to make sure that they're allowing in the love and the support that they provide for other people, because those women who are doing that very often, somewhere north of 60 to 70, begin to find that they are alienated in a way that they did not expect,
Mm-hmm.
because everybody else has been
Right.
using them, but they've not been taking anything else back in. So they haven't built
Mm-hmm.
mutuality. And that's a really important part of what I hear you saying is you need to look for this from other people, but then you also need to think, how am I showing up for them? Allowing and giving that
Mm-hmm.
flow.
And making space for that is a very important piece of that as well. I agree with exactly what you're saying. I also think that it becomes more difficult as we get older in our relationships. Young moms feel this way because they're just so busy, raising their kids and just trying to hold on for dear life. But as they get older, though, and something I have found even in my life is that circle does get smaller. And it's okay that it does, because hopefully you're replacing it with the quality versus the quantity. And also, and I think this is something I've found even at my mom's age when we've had conversations about it, not feeling the pressure also to be parts of groups that you don't want to be a part of, or
Yeah.
feel like you need to fit into a certain mold. And that's I think a challenge we have always, is that sometimes there is that intimidation factor attached to it.
Yeah. Oh, for
And
sure. What you
right,
should
what you
do.
should do or the type of friends you should have. There's also a piece that I talk about a lot in terms of values, that you're allowed to change and grow as you get older and learn new things and become, who you're becoming, as that saying goes. If your values no longer align in some of your relationships, that's also a reason you may want to exit the relationship. Again, it can be done with grace, but you can be honest about that. And I think we live in a world today also too where sometimes people are afraid to be honest about what their values are or that they're not in alignment anymore. But you may have
Yeah.
grown out of those relationships, or you may have grown, they may have grown. The reasons your friends don't add up really like they used to anymore. And that can be grief that's also being expressed,
Yeah.
the grief,
Grief.
right? That
Legit.
comes with the end of something, even if you know it's the right
Mm-hmm.
thing. And I think that's
Mm-hmm.
something we don't talk about a lot also too with relationships, with friendships, that is, that there can be a whole lot of grief
Yeah.
attached to the ending of something.
Yeah. As strong as certainly as a divorce loss. And I think that, listen, one of the truths that has become more clear to me of late because of some friends going through some of the things they're
Mhm.
going through is that when somebody says, I need to move on, I think I've outgrown this, automatically they're saying that means that it's
Yes.
true. Even if it doesn't feel that way to you right now, the truth is they're not who you thought anymore
Right.
either.
Yes.
And but it's grief because it's something that you put time into perhaps or great care, and to have the kind of strength of character to say, I'm going to accept it even though it feels crummy, and I'm going to trust that somehow, some way, I'll be led on to something else that's better, and I will release them with grace as best I can.
Beautiful.
I might get better at
Yeah.
that later, but right now, just going to take you out of my phone, wench. But
That's so beautifully said, though, but because, no one's doing anyone any favors staying in
no,
relationships that don't serve them in any sort of
no.
way. And I've done that. I've had friends in the past where I just feel bad or feel guilty, and it's like, I know that I'm not showing up as my best self for this person, and this person deserves better. They deserve to find someone who's going to have their arms around them and love them and be there for them in that way. It's also accepting people where they are and not where you want them to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, right. I
Yes.
mean, that's a big piece of it too.
Yeah.
And and like we talked about before, the only thing we can guarantee is that things will change, that nothing does stay the
Yeah.
same. But I
Yeah.
think what makes us more fearful about knowing that is you wonder,
Mhm.
where do you take the control then when you feel like you're losing control or you feel like you can't. Okay, we all I can be super controlling in that way where I want to be able to manage everything. And
Yeah.
it takes a lot of grace, but it also takes a lot of patience, and also realizing that we don't always have all the answers, and we're not really supposed to. But again, where can you take control when you feel out of control? And that's what I hope my book does. That's what I've always hoped that these conversations can do, is help shine a light on, of course, your worthiness, but also what is possible for you in order to empower or to move on or to heal or whatever it is, because that is within you. But sometimes you have to take a step back from the feelings or the pain or the
Mhm.
grief,
Of that
right, to
moment.
be able to do that.
And you know something? I always think there's a little something to the truth that if you found this and it was good for as long as it was good, then you probably can find the next
Right.
thing. One step, one Lego sized choice at a time, you walk that path, you're going to end up in a better place. And if this relationship, as sad as it is to be done with that, because, endings can become even more profound with age. We know this. But you know what, though? When I say endings, it makes me think. I just had a conversation yesterday. My friend's was talking about her mom who has gone on. And she said, the shame of it was she had dementia. And she said, but the shame of it was she was such a social butterfly and so social. But then nobody showed up for her at the end. And she was really lamenting this. And I said, honey, you don't understand social butterfly if you think those people were going to show up.
Mm-hmm.
This is, I don't know who's listening to this that needs this, but dipping lightly and not developing deep or meaningful relationships, but allowing them to pretty much be casual or surface will not produce a long-term result. You have to be vulnerable. You have to show up with your full heart, and you have to invest by opening your own heart, but also by being present to witness someone else's. And social butterflying is lovely. I am very social also, but to discern there's a difference between casual social relationships sustaining you long term and the girls that matter.
Absolutely. I mean, hallelujah. So well said. I mean, and not everyone is supposed to be a deep, meaningful relationship. You can, I have plenty of those social relationships. Yeah, fun and it's great and it's light and it's bright, wonderful. But those aren't the ride or dies, right? They're not.
No,
and not everyone should be, and not everyone can be. And so I love that image though, as bittersweet as that is, but that imagery of at the end of your life, who is with you, who surrounds you. And it's not about it's not about the quantity. It is not
at all.
And so, I think that that's a really powerful place to be right now in your life, the listeners' lives, my life, where we're being very, to go back to the word we used before, intentional about the choices that we're making. And I think if you take anything away from this conversation today, it is that it should be done with intention. And this work that we're doing is intentional, and you're worthy of this work. And so, give yourself the grace, give yourself the time. I always say, as people are talking about their New Year's resolutions and things like that, when January comes around, I'm like, wouldn't it be great, instead of saying, oh, I'm going to lose those 10 pounds or I'm going to do that gym membership, wouldn't it be great if you looked at those archetypes and said, you know what? I think I could really pour into being the healer. I think I could really, right? And that's what I'm going to do this year. I'm going to work on that.
I'm going to cultivate two friendships.
Right. That intention, I think.
You are so badass, Florence Ann.
Well, I don't know about, thank you. I appreciate that.
This is the investments that pay off. Seriously, it's kind of genius. So, okay. So we have some sweet, amazing woman right now who is listening to this, and she's like, well, yes, I can see where I need better friends, and I've been working a lot and doing these things. What could I do, or where could I look? Like, where are good, you know what I mean? Fish where you want to catch something. So where should we fish? What are great suggestions?
My favorite one, and it without fail absolutely does the trick every single time, and that is philanthropy. If you are looking to make connections and you're looking to find people that are like-minded, have similar values, but you're a little gun shy about, putting yourself out there, it's a little intimidating, tapping someone on the shoulder and be like, you want to be my friend? And that's not what I'm telling you to do. I'm saying find something that makes your heart flutter. We're supposed to live our life in service of others in one way or another, whatever that means to you.
Yes.
So why don't you throw that in Google and take a look at what exists in your community, show up somewhere and
get creative
and show up somewhere, and you're already going to be with people that are similar to you, and you're going to have built-in conversations, and all of a sudden you're going to be making relationships, you're going to be making connections, and it's not going to seem as intimidating as walking up to someone and asking them to be your friend, like I said. So philanthropy, that is the first place that I always tell people to start. And I know people are busy, I know it, and I'm not saying you need to write a check or have gobs of money in order to do something like that. People think of philanthropy and think that equates there. It's, what can you do to serve in the way that you can? Maybe that's through your church, it's through your community, or maybe it's going to be that you're going to put together a little cute little basket and you're going to walk up to a neighbor's house and you're going to ring the bell and say, I am so sorry, I've never introduced myself to you. It's been so long, but here, my name and number is on this, and there's a basket of my favorite things, and I'm here and I'd love to grab a cup of coffee or whatever it is. Small steps lead to big results. And I really, and we have all read those books where they're like, if you do these, 57 things in maybe a year, you'll probably start to feel a difference. And no. And in my book, I also talk about that too. I have at the end of every chapter, there's gut checks and action steps. What did I learn from this chapter? That's the gut check. And then the action steps are what can I do today to actually make progress on this?
I love that. I love that. And I think that's incredibly beautiful to realize that if you're ever looking for your
Yeah.
people, poke around in the areas of your passions, because those are tips to you, about what is powerful and meaningful in your life. And if you're going to connect with somebody in a great way, showing up and giving of yourself with somebody else who's doing that, uh, what a wonderful kind. And you can be creative about how you do that. You're not limited to being Mother Teresa or
Right.
else. You know,
Exactly.
there are many ways to volunteer time, love, or treasure,
Amen.
right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. I love that. James Carville says that in life there are things that we give that are sacred, and they are your time and your love. And I would add that also your treasure, because that is what becomes important. But it's so important to think about what you give, but also to allow in within the context of friendship to make sure that you receive also, so that others may receive the gift of giving,
I
you
love
know?
that. Beautiful. Absolutely.
Mm,
100%.
mm. Well, what would you say is the thing you most want us to know, Florence
Well, that
Ann?
you're worthy of connection. You're worthy of love. And if you were not born into the village that you wish you had been,
Mm.
you can design that for yourself. And that's hopefully,
Oh,
where you are in your life today, is knowing that you're you've got the power. And I want you to feel
yes.
empowered to do that. So if
Yes.
it doesn't look the way you want it to, then you can build it. And
Yeah.
hopefully I've given you the toolbox to use to do that.
You
And
have.
and if I haven't, then I want to know, and what we're make those adjustments. But you have the power. You have the power to create that life and those connections that you want for yourself. It doesn't matter what you were born into. At some point,
Amen.
you have to control it.
Amen. That's the most beautiful closing that we could possibly have. Honestly, I know we were
I
meant to find
agree.
each
This
other.
won't be the
I'm
last time we talk.
grateful for your
No,
time.
thank you
You
so much. Mwah. We'll
mwah,
talk soon.
go
All
out
right.
there and kill
You
him,
too.
Tiger.
All right. Mwah, mwah. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm so grateful you listened to this episode. I hope it was a real value to you. If there's a sister in your life who needs this message, please share it, just like women have done to lift each other up over the centuries and across cultures. Women lifting each other is so important. It's why I do this work. And to avoid FOMO and keep up leveling your own life, make sure you don't miss the next episode. You may be losing hormones, but your life has given you powerful perspective. And I believe you have something to give that no one else does, that the world needs. So remember, I'm rooting for you. Let's go.